we responsible for our decisions? If reality were deterministic, we obviously would not be responsible for our decisions. However, as shown in an earlier video, we can prove that reality is continuous and as a result is indeterministic. Given this result, could it be that our decisions must ultimately be ascribed to chance rather than to our personal responsibility? Or, if we believe in God, could it be that our decisions must ultimately be ascribed to the activity of God rather than to our personal responsibility? The answer is that our decisions must be ascribed to our personal responsibility. Although this result is intuitively true, it's not obvious how it can be proven. And in fact, the proof which I'll now explain is the most subtle proof in my book. As always, please keep in mind that I can't provide all of the technical detail here. Also keep in mind that the idea that we are personally responsible for our decisions is qualified by the fact that we are not 100% responsible, and the degree of responsibility varies with the condition of our body and the situation at hand. For example, suppose that a malevolent group captures us, injects us with a mind-altering drug, subjects us to duress, and records our admission of some misdeed which we never did. To what extent are we responsible for our admission? Not much. I wish to begin by explaining a concept that some people refer to as reductionism, but which I refer to more precisely as scale reductionism, where scale refers to measurement scale. Under scale reductionism, the behavior of large-scale objects depends entirely on the behavior of their components. To illustrate, under scale reductionism, the behavior of a human body depends entirely on the behavior of its components. Now recall from the video on knowledge that knowledge is given by the best predictor of our observations, the simplest, most accurate predictor of our observations. In this light, scale reductionism means that the best model for predicting large-scale behavior reduces to the best model for predicting small-scale behavior. More precisely, scale reductionism means that the best model for predicting large-scale behavior is implied by the best model for predicting small-scale behavior. Let's put this in simple, approximate, intuitive terms. Intuitively, scale reductionism means that if we know everything that can be known about predicting small-scale behavior, we will, as a result, know everything that can be known about predicting large-scale behavior. To illustrate, under scale reductionism, if we know everything that can be known about predicting the behavior of molecules, we will, as a result, know everything that can be known about predicting the behavior of people and the behavior of all other objects. So we will know everything that can be known about predicting the commercial and the political activities of the human race. Currently, if we wish to maximize our ability to predict the commercial activities of the human race, we don't study molecules so that we can better predict molecular behavior. Rather, we study the commercial activities of the human race so that we can better predict those activities. And this observation applies to all activities of the human race, including political activities. We study the behavior of molecules when we want to predict narrow, highly technical facets of human behavior, such as the effect of particular drugs on behavior. And we must augment this study of molecules with a study of the complementary human behavior. I refer to this form of model development as scale extensionism, because rather than reducing a large-scale model to a small-scale model, as in scale reductionism, what we actually do is extend the small-scale model to cover large-scale behavior, and we base the extension on observations of large-scale behavior. Under scale reductionism, the behavior of large-scale objects depends entirely on the behavior of their components, so the value of X% in the figure will be 100%. By contrast, under scale extensionism, the behavior of the large-scale objects depends partly on the behavior of their components, with the value of X% never reaching 100%. The value of X%, the extent of the dependence, will be given by the best predictor model of the large-scale behavior. We can state the idea of scale extensionism as follows. The best model for predicting large-scale behavior is an extension of the best model for predicting small-scale behavior. Now I wish to ask you a question. Do you intuitively think that scale reductionism holds? Putting this in the approximate terms that we're using here, do you think that if we knew everything that could be known about predicting small-scale behavior, we would as a result know everything that could be known about predicting large-scale behavior? Do you think that if we knew everything that could be known about predicting the behavior of molecules, we would as a result know everything that could be known about predicting the commercial and the political activities of the human race? I invite you to pause the video on the next slide and answer the question. I don't believe that any viewer will answer the question yes based on their intuition. I believe that a viewer who answers yes is basing their answer on the explicit assumption of scale reductionism. More specifically, our experience tells us that when small-scale components are assembled to create large-scale components, the large-scale behavior cannot be entirely predicted from the small-scale behavior. Hence, our experience tells us that scale reductionism does not hold. Complementing this, the concept of scale extensionism solves the problem in object identity as to why an object such as a human retains its identity over time, although the particular atoms and molecules that compose its body may not be retained. The object retains its identity because its identity is the result of its behavior, and its behavior is not entirely predictable based on scale reductionism. In my book, I claim that scale reductionism is in general false, and that an interested reader skilled in mathematical logic could formalize the concept and specify the constraints that a system must meet in order for scale reductionism to hold in the transition from one measurement scale to another. I lack the expertise to complete this task, but I believe that the completion of the formal model will reveal severe constraints that obviously do not hold in real life. This technical task is one of three that I identify in my book but do not complete. I mention another of the three in the video on theism and atheism. At this point, I will assume that scale reductionism is false and that scale extensionism holds. Technically speaking, then, my proof of personal responsibility remains incomplete until a formal system is developed that explicates the constraints implied by the idea of scale reductionism, thereby clarifying that such constraints do not hold in real life. However, since the idea of scale reductionism is intuitively false and is not substantiated by any real-life example, I believe that I can proceed with the proof of personal responsibility without sacrificing the credibility of the result. We will now see that under scale extensionism, a person is responsible for their decisions. Specifically, under scale extensionism, a person is responsible for their decisions because the best predictor of their behavior is a model of their behavior at the respective measurement scale. And under such a model, a person is responsible for their decisions. To illustrate, the best predictor of your behavior will never be the best predictor of the behavior of the molecules that compose your body, no matter how sophisticated the models of molecular behavior may become over time. Rather, the best predictor of your behavior will always be the best predictor of your behavior as an intelligent human being, supplemented as needed with predictive information from the models of the behavior of the components of your body. Thus, if you express great discomfort because of a toothache, we augment our knowledge of your behavior as an intelligent human being with knowledge of the behavior of the relevant nerve and tooth, and we suggest that you visit a dentist. This is what we do in real life, and I've just proven that it is rational. That is, I have proven that it is rational subject to completing a technical task of formal logic, which should produce the expected outcome. May I summarize? In earlier videos, we established that knowledge is given by the best predictor of our observations. Knowledge is given by the simplest, most accurate predictor of our observations. In addition, we proved that reality is indeterministic. This sets the stage for proving that we are responsible for our decisions, though the extent of responsibility will vary from situation to situation. What stands in the way of proving personal responsibility is the idea of scale reductionism, namely that the best model for predicting large-scale behavior is implied by the best model for predicting small-scale behavior. I submit that scale reductionism is intuitively false and that it is not substantiated by any real-life example. I identify a task of formal logic to be completed to show that scale reductionism does not in fact hold in real life. Assuming that scale reductionism does not hold, we are left with scale extensionism, and under scale extensionism, a person is responsible for their decisions. Specifically, under scale extensionism, a person is responsible for their decisions because the best predictor of their behavior is a model of their behavior at the respective measurement scale. And under such a model, a person is responsible for their decisions. In conclusion, this proves that our everyday intuitive understanding of personal responsibility is correct. This proves that we are responsible for our decisions if God exists or if God does not exist.